media availability with Coach Wilcox. I think, Coach, you have one injury announcement for this crew, I believe, and then we'll open it up for questions after that.
Yeah, hi everyone. The one injury announcement we have is that Curly Young, who's an outside linebacker, will be out for this season with a lower body injury, and we'll look forward to getting him back in springtime.
Okay, with that, we'll go ahead and open it up for questions. We'll start with Jeff Ferrato from SI.
Hey, good morning, Coach. Yesterday, the Pac-12 announced protocols for potentially canceling or postponing games in the event of some COVID breakout. 53-player minimum, I guess 1 quarterback, 7 offensive linemen, and 4 defensive linemen. I guess, first of all, what was your reaction to that? Did that seem appropriate? And what's your confidence level at this point that the conference will be able to get from week to week without having to postpone or cancel games?
We talked at length about that here about a month ago, just to make sure that there were some parameters on, what, the size of the roster, who was available in order to play games. So I think it was well thought out. There was some, looking at some other conferences. I know they had talked to some other conferences about what they were doing. So in line with that, and as long as everybody's, basically playing by the same rules, I think that's a good thing. In terms of my confidence for, the season, I'm confident. I think a lot of people put a lot of time and energy into it. To say it's going to go perfectly, I don't know that. I don't think anybody does. I think we're all doing the best we can with the protocols we have in place, and we got to be ready to adjust if needed. So
they talked about canceling games, but also they referred to postponing games. And since there's not a bye week anywhere on your pretty tight schedule, are we talking about potentially playing games on Sunday or Monday, or it doesn't seem like any other day could possibly work? But what do you know about that?
Well, I know they're trying to be as flexible as possible to maximize the number of games that we could play safely. So I don't know that anything would be off the table. And I think they'll be dealt with individually by that specific game as it moves forward.
Could you imagine any other day other than Sunday or Monday? Because that would make the next week pretty short if you were playing Wednesday, obviously.
Well, I've had those before. I mean, I remember back in my days at Boise State. I mean, one year I think we played on every day of the week except a Monday night or something like that. I mean, we had a lot of those games in those days, and sometimes you'd have a long week, or sometimes you'd have a really short week. And so it's been done. And again, I think it's just, we're going to take those one at a time. For now, we're practicing. We got a block of 6 practices starting back up today, and we'll be ready to adjust accordingly when the time comes. But to sit here and try and map out the season, I think it'd be really difficult.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move back to our order here. We'll go with Jake Curtis from SI.
Yeah, Justin, you got new starters at 4 of your 5 defensive back situations, but you seem to have a lot of experience there. How do you look at your secondary?
Well, with Cameron back and Elijah, there's a lot of experience between those two guys. Josh Drayden's played a lot of football for us in the past few years. There's some guys who are taking a lot of reps that have done some good things, and Daniel Scott, Chiggy, there's some young players that are pushing to get in the mix there as well. So we still have some time before this first game, but it's been competitive, and I think there's kind of a mix, as you mentioned. There's guys that have played a lot of football. I don't know the number of stats that Cam and Elijah have under their belt, but it's a lot. And then some guys that are getting their feet wet and playing a lot more. But it'll be fun to watch.
And regarding Washington's quarterback situation, I assume they're not going to announce anything until the week of, possibly not even then. How does that affect your preparation?
First games always have the unknowns, and we'll put in a plan based on what we do know. But again, that's, every year with the first game, there's the unknowns of, especially when there's some coaching turnover. But I know though, whoever plays for him at quarterback's gonna be a really good player. They'll have a really good team, but we'll be focused on ourselves going into that game. And like any other first game or any game throughout the rest of the season, there's adjustments that'll need to be made, during the first quarter at halftime, things that we're gonna have to tweak and adjust to, because I'm sure there's gonna be things that we didn't see on tape or maybe wrinkles in the game plan that we'll need to address.
And last thing, I just thought of this with the Nick Saban thing. I mean, he eventually was able to coach the game, but do you have contingencies in case you run into a situation where you can't be there on game day?
Yeah, for all of us. Yeah, I mean, we do. We have coaching contingencies, obviously player contingencies. I think it's, those things, I don't know that you can model every single scenario because there's a lot of them, but we have a great staff in place, and we have plans if any of us aren't able to be there for practice or a game.
Can you tell me who it would be if you're not there?
Who would do what? What job are you talking about?
Who would be the head coach? Who would make the final calls on things on
Well,
game
we
day?
would break it up between offense and defense and special teams. And
Nice.
yeah, I think that there would be, do we accept penalties? Do we not? It would be a group effort, and everybody would have responsibility. So our guys would do great. There's no doubt about that. I mean, I'm not concerned with that.
Thanks.
Okay, we'll move on to Trace Travers, or actually Rusty Simmons, you're next on the list. Rusty from the Chronicle.
Hey, Coach, I was just going to ask about the schedule. How far along you feel like you guys are in training camp right now? And you mentioned the block of 6 practices coming up. Can you give us an idea of what you expect out of that?
Yep. Really important block that we have this week. We are, 10 practices in, and it'll be, more physical this week. A few of these padded practices will get more and more physical. There'll be more reps. So we've built up over the past 9 practices, just the number of team reps, the amount of individual we're doing. So that will grow into this week, and we'll have some very competitive days. And then we'll have a block of 6, and then we really have 3, 3, and 3. And that'll lead us right up to the game.
When do you guys, I'm sure this is part of all of camp, but when do you guys actually turn to Washington prep?
Yeah, generally it's a normal game week plus about 2 days. And so we'll see where we're at as we enter that last 10 days or so. And again, with some of the unknowns, especially offensively at Washington, I mean, we'll have some things that we prepare for, but so much of it is going to come down to execution on our part, offensively, defensively, special teams. It always does. But in terms of game planning, it's generally, your normal preparation for a week plus a couple days. Just, this year could be a little unique just because of the shortened time frame and the work we need to do on ourselves.
Thank you.
And now we'll move to Trace Travers from Rivals.
Yeah, you also have new starters this year, conceivably at kicker, punter, and at the kick return position. Who are you guys kind of targeting to fill those spots right now?
Well, their punter, Jamison Sheehan has done a really good job. He's, as you all know, probably he's our punter who's never punted in a football game before, but he's done a really good job. He's a talented guy. We expect him to do very, very well. He's a mature guy. He's older, so he's been through some competitive sport in his day, just not a lot of American football. But he's doing a really nice job. Dario Longhetto right now is kicking well, and it's still competitive at that position, but I think Dario's noticeably improved from last year. And at kick returner, we have a number of guys that we're working back there, some veterans who have taken some reps, and then some of these younger guys who've got some explosiveness. So that one's still getting sorted out, Trace, but like our athleticism there, and could be a one or two guys, or, and it could change even throughout the year based on the experience that some of these other guys get.
And to kind of move in a different direction, other schools in the Pac-12 have had scrimmages during this fall camp period. Are you guys allowed to do a scrimmage with the current health regulations, or is that something you guys have planned, or how's that working?
Yep, good question. The regulations are the same. So the roster, the 75 is the 75, and we have not had a live scrimmage yet. We are still kind of working ourselves into that condition, and getting the expertise on our systems down. And we anticipate having some live work this week. Now, whether that results in a 100-play scrimmage, I don't know that we would go that far with it right now, but we'll have some live reps this week.
Awesome, thank you.
Okay, we'll move on to Jasper Sundin from the Daily Cow.
I'd like it to be on record that Trace stole my question again. I was going to ask about special teams, and he beat me to it. But real quick, I think we were talking to some of the coaches last week, and they said they were giving players a diverse set of reps just out of COVID planning. I think we talked to Angus. He said he was shifting players along the offensive line as almost a precautionary measure. Do you see that with other coaches? Are you guys trying to do that at other positions, just to sort of build in some, like, a buffer in case of COVID?
Yeah, and I would say that's one reason. We try to do that in general, just so you're always able to get your best 11 on the field, maybe not just the second person. If somebody were to go down, that the second person at that position. So it's O-line being cross-trained. We're doing some of that. We're doing a lot of that at the receiver position, the backs, in the secondary at linebacker. Guys get trained in multiple spots. There are times when, especially a new young player, such as a freshman, a newcomer, might be a little bit more specialized. So they have the opportunity to help us and not get spread too thin in terms of how much we're asking them to learn. But generally, upperclassmen and guys that have been here a little while, they're going to be cross-trained for the reasons I mentioned, that we're able to get our best 11 on the field and not just the person who might be next in line. That makes sense.
Absolutely. And then I do have a special teams question. You mentioned Jamison Sheehan has had some competitive experience, I think, playing some Aussie rules. What are your thoughts on that transition from Aussie rules to American footy?
Well, if you came out and watched him practice, you'd think he'd been doing it his whole life. So he's the first thing, he's a natural catcher. So he catches the ball well. And I know sometimes you don't think about that for punters, but the first thing they got to do is catch the ball. And he's a natural catcher, and he grips it quick, gets it in a good grip, and then he can punt it. And he doesn't have just, one punt. He's got a couple different styles of punts that he works with. And I think he's doing a great job. So,
has he mentioned the grand final at all for this weekend?
He hasn't, but I'll bring that up. I'm sure he'd be interested in talking about it.
Yeah.
All right, David Bush from Bear Insider.
Coach Musgrave really raved earlier last week about Ashton Stredick. What do you see in him, and how did he come under your radar the first time? How did you become aware of him?
Yeah, Ashton's doing a really good job. He's working in the developmental practice right now, but he's quick and he can catch the ball. Obviously, he can run the ball. And in terms of recruiting, we recruit the West Coast, but there's times when there's just a really good match, maybe throughout the country, whether it's in Texas, for example, or the East Coast or the South, where a guy has an interest, especially, a really good student and somebody who's a really productive player. And he had other options terms of where to go play college football. And he's not the biggest guy. So I'm sure, there were schools that maybe said he wasn't quite big enough, but we sure liked his tape and knew what kind of student he was and got a chance to meet him and his family when they came out here. And I think he's doing a great job. And you don't put up the numbers he put up on accident, I don't. And he was extremely productive, as you know. So we're excited for him, and he's learning a lot right now, but he's doing a nice job.
And on another subject, how are you doing on the injury front? Are you able to keep 90% of the guys healthy, for example? And as far as the COVID is concerned and the physical injuries, you're doing well there?
Yeah, we are. I mentioned the one that was significant with Curly, but other than that, we have some bumps and bruises, which happen, but we're doing well right now on the injury front. Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay, Rusty Simmons.
Yeah, with all the special teams talk this morning, I was going to give you a chance to brag about Coach Regal. How good is he at identifying some of those people and developing your special teams?
Yeah, Charlie's been awesome. I mean, he has a great temperament for special teams. He's passionate about it, and that attitude permeates throughout the program. And we have good players that play on special teams. It's not something where, the starters don't play on special teams, for example. And so he's done a really good job with it and got guys buy into playing special teams. And it's a critical part of the game and changes field position and the hidden yardage. So he's done a great job for us. And again, he's in front of the team a lot, because he deals with players at every position. And whether it's, O-lineman on field goal or, the mixed positions you have on kickoff or punt return. So he gets to work with a lot of the players, and it's a good thing. And then, outside of the actual X's and O's, Charlie's done just an excellent job recruiting for us, and we're glad to have him.
We got a chance this weekend to talk to Valentino Daltoso and Jake Curran. And they went into some detail about the We Are United campaign and said that it sparked some interesting conversations with Mr. Knowlton and you. Can you give us any insight in kind of those conversations and what came out of that?
Yeah. As you all know, Jake and Val and Josh were heavily involved. And I think the one thing that we really talked about was, I think a lot of what they said, I think everybody agreed with. Administrators, coaches, players, everybody was on board. And there might be varying degrees on the remaining 15 or 20%. And that's okay. I mean, I think it's important to respect everybody's, view on that, whether it's a player, the players, where they are coming from or where the coach's administration is coming from, the conference. And, we support our guys voicing their opinion, and it was never contentious at all. And it was an important discussion really for the players and the conference to have. And I know, they talked with Jim Knowlton at length about some of those things. And then I know they spoke with the conference, but I think the important thing for us is it was never a contentious issue with the coaches and the players, or the players and the players. And that was the most important thing for us.
Yeah, it sounded really productive. And you mentioned it there that you like your players to find their voice. What do you think about what they accomplished this offseason?
Well, I think they got a lot of people talking, and that's always a good thing. I think there was, as you can imagine, there was certain points that they had brought up that everybody was on board with. And then there's a few that are a bit more complicated. And I think the discussions started and are continuing, which is important. But it's, it really takes everybody. That's NCAA. It's every conference. It's every administration getting involved in those things. But I think they got some people talking, and that's a good thing. And, they were always on board with, Cal football. There was never it just wasn't a combative relationship with Cal football. It was them saying their piece and what they believe in. And we had no problem with that. And they continue to work really hard over the summer and are here with us now. So we're glad they're with us.
Much appreciated.
Okay. Back to our chat here. Jeff Corrado, you had another question.
Yeah, Justin, last year Coin Ding came in and was very productive in his first year in the program. And now Weaver's gone, and I'm wondering, in what ways has Coin shown that he's going to be different in terms of perhaps being more of a leader, a take charge guy on your defense? How does his role change, and how has he adapted to that?
He was a leader even last year. Coin, just his demeanor, if you're around him in the building, at practice, in the weight room, he is a leader. He was a leader last year. The way he conducts himself, how hard he works, the type of person that he is. So we just want him to continue being himself, and he's understands the defense better and better. He's becoming, I think he's grown a ton in terms of being a football player since he's been here. Physically, he's gotten bigger. Coin's a big dude, and he can run, and he is smart, and he's got good instincts for the game. So I expect him to do really well, and we just want him to continue being Coin. And we got some other guys that are competing next to him, with Evan Tattersall and Moe Yosefa, and I think it'll be fun to watch some of those other guys rotate through there too. But he's really leading the way for that group.
Last several years, that position has been remarkably productive for you. Obviously, Jordan Kanashik, and then Weaver had a couple of great seasons as well. Is that some of that built into what the defense does, or is it just the personnel you have there? And what do you expect from Coin in terms of his productivity this season?
Yeah, you'd hope that your linebackers make a lot of plays, and I think it's been the caliber of player and also the development from the coaches. Evan really started playing linebacker when we got here, and he was developed by our coaching staff and ended up being a player of the year in the conference. And then Jordan the same, and so I think it's a combination of really some dang good players and dang good coaches that are developing them. I don't know that there's any magic system out there that automatically, makes a guy the player of the year, or, having the number of tackles that Jordan and Evan did, or Evan and Coin did. But I think it's a combination of the players and the coaches that are developing them. So I'm excited for Coin and what he's going to do this season. And then I'm also looking forward to seeing some of these other guys get in there and have a chance to make some plays.
If I could ask one last follow-up on him, what do you see for his long-term potential as an NFL player? He's kind of looks like almost a throwback to like a Ted Hendricks kind of guy, the Mad Stork, 6'6", lanky, long guy. What do you see as Coin's potential at the next level?
Yeah, I think he absolutely has potential at the next level. Most people, I think when you see him, you say, oh, he's an outside linebacker because he's tall, and he's got long levers, but he can really bend and he plays inside well. And I think he'll have some position flexibility moving forward. He does now. We'll use him at times to do some different things as opposed to just playing inside linebacker. So I think he's got a bright future in football because he's got the physical traits, but also just his mental makeup. He is a very determined, focused guy, very, very intelligent, and it's important to him. He lives a really lean life, and there's not a lot of that maybe, that distracts him from what he's focused on. So I think
is that Ted Hendricks comparison apropos, or am I just reaching?
I don't know. There's probably a lot of them. You all watch more games than I have with the comparisons, but he was a pretty good one. Yeah. But there's I think, again, the natural is, well, he's outside backer because he's tall, but there are inside linebackers that are tall that play really well. And then there's some outside linebackers that aren't maybe 6'6" that play really well. So it just kind of goes back to what can they do? What do they see well? What do their instincts lend themselves towards? Physically, where do they fit the best? But he'll have some opportunities, certainly.
Thank you.
Hey, guys, I think we have time just for the 2 remaining questions in the chat. We'll go Trace and then followed by Rusty.
Well, I was hoping for a John Matuzak comparison for corner, but can't go quite there yet. I had the chance to talk with Burl yesterday about your 2 senior receivers and Travon Clark and Kekwa Crawford. What have those 2 guys kind of brought to the practice field and as leaders?
Mm-hmm. Trayvon's got back and working himself into shape. Trayvon has some really good skills, and I think he can do some things that really help us on offense. And Kekoa, boy, he looks quick and fast right now. I think last year he was, as you know, he was kind of battling through some injury things, but he's leaned up and looks really quick and fast right now. He's very smart and knows the offense and competitive guy. So I'm really looking forward to watching both those guys.
And you brought up Iosefa as well as someone who could play next to Dang. What has he shown you? Because I know he's a very good cover guy in addition to, being a good tackler.
Yeah, Mo is still learning a lot, and there's a transition there, but physically, I mean, he is a big athletic guy. He's got the kind of the size, speed, agility for that position. He kind of looks like an inside linebacker, if you will, but still learning a lot. I mean, there's some moving parts, but we're really excited about Mo's future because he's in a short period of time has made some really impressive plays.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll take a final question from Rusty Simmons.
Yes, I was going to ask about the trajectory of Cal football. Coach Sermon last week and also Coin Dang talked about feeling the trajectory through fans and recruiting. I'm wondering from the head coach level if you feel that and kind of what your sense is of what the perception of Cal football is right now.
The perception, I guess, is what I don't know that we have control over the perception other than we need to go play well. That's the way we can control the perception, so that's what we're focused on. And I do sense that, there's a lot of the expectations have risen outside the building, which is great because they've absolutely risen inside the building. And I think that's a good thing. So when people talk about that, or there's expectations, or the perception is good, then, that certainly helps the program. But I think the key for us is to, understand why that happens. It's everything we do every day and how we, are living off the field and how we're preparing so we can go out and play well. And that will control the perception as much as we can control it.
Do you feel that difference in recruiting when you reach out to players around California and throughout the country?
Yeah, and I think even being here from years ago, Cal has always had a draw. The education and the location will never change, and those 2 things are, undisputed. The education and the location. Now, our job in the football program is to grow the program and improve it, and I think we've done that. Maybe not at the speed or to the degree which that we all want, but we're getting there, and I think it's due to a lot of alignment through our institution, our chancellor, Jim Knowlton, the football program, and we got a lot of support in that. And I think you feel that here in our building and even outside with alumni and fans, and that's a good thing. And that results in some success, and then recruits take notice. So I think it's certainly improved in the last few years, and it needs to continue to improve. I mean, that's the expectation for us.
Right on. Thank you.
Okay, guys.